G'day humans, Chris Stead here. Today I'm reviewing the 2024 edition of the Tesla Model 3. So if you're a regular with the channel, you probably would have seen that I've recently reviewed the Model Y 2024 edition, Model Y from the Tesla range. And I literally dropped that off and jumped straight into this and took this one for a spin. Now, there's a lot of similarities between the two cars, but there's also some pretty decent differences as well. Now, I'm going to do another video where I'll literally compare the two directly. So make sure you subscribe if you want to get a notification when that becomes available. But in this particular article, or this particular video, I'm going to dive straight in specifically and focus on a review of this, the Model 3. Tesla Model 3. So let's start with the price. So the Model 3 here in Australia will set you back $54,900 before on road. It works out to just over $60,000 once you're on road with all the on-road costs. Now, like I said, this is the bottom level. This is the rear wheel drive bottom of the range. There's one they call the long range all-wheel drive, and it costs you about $10,000 more. And then there's the top of the range is a performance model, which is also all-wheel drive, which will set you back another $17,000 on top of that, or $27,000 on top of this. Now, when you get to the kind of model up from this, what you kind of get for that extra money is an improvement in speed and power. So I think it goes from 6.1 seconds to 100, 0 to 100 to 4.4, something like that. And you get about a bit more than 100 kilometers extra range as well. So that's kind of the major differences there. And when you go to the performance, it's all about the zip. So a high top speed, a lot quicker to 100, a lot zippier, a bit more better handling, a few more aesthetic improvements here and there as well. But it's all about the speed, not about the range. That's what you're going to get with the performance model. But we're here to talk about, we're going to focus mostly on the rear wheel drive. So let's jump in and take a look at the specifications on this particular car. And there's updates to the interior and the exterior in this 2024 model I'll go into separately. But if we just focus on the specs, the rear wheel drive here is powered by a 57.5 kilowatt hour lithium-ion phosphate battery. Now the next models step it up to 75 kilowatt hours, which is why you're getting a bit more range there. So this rear wheel drive model has the equivalent of 194 kilowatts of power and 340 Newton meters of torque. That steps up massively with the long range, which has dual motors and a different nickel manganese cobalt battery as opposed to lithium ion phosphate battery. Now it's 340 kilowatts of power and 493 Newton meters of torque. So that steps up quite a bit, and the performance is even up again, 461 kilowatts of power and 741 Newton meters of torque. That's like relative power basically to what you'd see in a petrol engine. It's quite the upgrade there. But with the rear wheel drive, like I said, it's 0 to 100 in 6.1 seconds, but definitely feels faster than that in reality. 513 kilometer max range, and that's based a lot on harvesting and like regenerating power as well. So you're probably unlikely to hit that. But that's your maximum theoretical range. 170 kilowatts of charging, so it only charges at 170 kilowatts. The other models can go up to 250, that's at your superchargers. And your supercharger can give you 282 kilometers in just 15 minutes of charging if you get stuck. Now 360-degree acoustic glass for a quieter cabin. The rear wheel drive has 9 speakers, which is obviously pretty solid, but the other models have a whopping 17, including dual subwoofers and 2 amps, so it really steps up with the speakers. Ventilated seats here, remote access with the app. The visual processing, kind of the Tesla Vision, has about 250 meters of visibility, so that's pretty impressive. 18-inch wheels are standard on this particular, on the Tesla 3. I think it's 19-inch on the Tesla Y that I was testing before. And there's 2 touch screens in this model. There's a 15.4-inch front screen and an 8-inch rear screen as well. So there's a rear screen in this model that there wasn't previously. Weight-wise, about 1.76 tons for the rear-wheel drive. It gets a little bit heavier with the next models up, but not too much. They're all under 2 tons. Boot capacity in the Model 3 is quite a bit smaller, so 594 litres of capacity, standard, but if you put the seats down, you get about 682 litres. But obviously it's a sedan here, so you're kind of getting a bit more of a compromised boot space, but I'll show you that in a sec. Warranty-wise, 4 years or 80,000 kilometres, And for the battery and drive unit, you get 8 years or 160,000 kilometers. There's a 5-star ANCAP rating on this, and there are 5 colors, and new to the series in 2024 is the Ultra Red that you can see here, and also Stealth Grey. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the design of the car. And look, it's a lovely looking car in my opinion. Like, it's obviously the sporty option in the Tesla range, and it's got a sporty feel to it, and it looks really cool. I really love this color too. This is an excellent color. Now, there are some refinements on the 2024 model, which is kind of like a midlife, you know, iteration of the form factor, mostly in the front end here. So it's got the matrix LEDs. It's a bit slimmer and more subtle with the bumper and also the air intake at the front. So it's a bit more narrower up there, but nice and sleek the whole way around with the glass roof over the top. I love the handles, which are really, really funky. I would have enjoyed some bigger mirrors. I'll go a little bit more into that, but the mirrors are, you know, they're quite tight. There's a lot of technical visibility things going on, cameras showing you left, right and center when you're driving, but a little bit bigger on the mirrors would have been nice. One of the things that may be the biggest struggle for people with this particular car is it sits lower. Like the 18-inch wheels are a bit smaller than the Model Y, sits you down a bit lower. It's a bit more efficient, but you definitely notice that you're sitting low in terms of your visibility around the car, but also getting in and out of the car is quite challenging if you're not an awfully mobile person. So that's something to think about depending on your mobility and how you are. That it does sit very low, and getting in and out can be a bit of a challenge. Let's have a look at the inside of the car. So inside the interior, there's definitely some changes with the new model, but a lot of similarities between this and the Y. So the notable changes you might notice are in the dash. If you're familiar with both cars, up in the dash here, they've just kind of reassessed the vents a little bit, made it a bit more customizable, and who can open and close vents as well. You know, you've got this strip that runs the whole entire way around the car, this LED strip, and it goes all the way back, as you can see. Like if you look all the way back here, it's all the way back, and it lights up different colors as you're driving, and it's really quite cool, and it creates a very futuristic, spacey experience while you're driving the car. The only thing that's negative about it, I mean, it's nicer than say the wood grain or something like that you usually get, is that you do get a reflection of it during the day. It kind of reflects. You got this U shape that runs across here, which may annoy some people. It's definitely something that caught my eye. I didn't end up like focusing on it, but it definitely caught my eye. So that's something to consider. But in general, it's really quite cool. The screen's been improved slightly. It's about 10% extra brightness, I think. I think it's 10% extra brightness on the screen. One of the big things is with the steering wheels are all kind of new. So you've lost both the kind of stalks. So you used to have your blinkers and everything here, and your drive shaft basically here. Now, in this particular one, the blinkers are over here, if you can see on the wheel here, I don't know. Next to the joystick, you've got your blinkers. So you just hit them with your thumbs like so, and wiper and your high beams. And then with the drive shaft, I think that's your high beams. And with the drive shaft, it's all on the screen now, or up here. So if you look up, you can tap this. I might not with my foot not on the brake. So, let me see if I've got the car. See, oh, it's because the door's open. Anyway, I'll show you that later. Or it's on the screen here, so you can go up and down on the screen just to activate the various drives. So that's a bit of a difference. With the blinkers, I found this mechanism here of having the blinkers on the steering wheel to actually not be too bad. I thought it was a bit, you know, like, I thought I'd constantly be trying to access it here and it'd be annoying, but I've actually quite quickly adapted to using it with my thumb. I think maybe I play a lot of video games, so maybe that's got a lot to do with it, just used to that kind of functionality. But the stalk I found on the older version anyway was kind of like just a bit rigid and a bit annoying anyway, so it was kind of like the lesser of two evils in a way. But that's a different adaptation. Luxury feel, like the materials inside have been improved somewhat. They feel great, like it feels really nice. It feels super luxury. The seats are a little bit like kind of on the, you know, they're not full sporty hard, but they're on the harder side. I don't know if I'd say it's luxury feel, but they're comfortable. Lots of carpets down here, and carpeted walls, carpeted down here. I think that's to do a lot with the sound, to try and help trap the sound. We've also got this acoustic glass all around us as well to just prevent that kind of road noise coming through, because you obviously don't have the engine sound that's kind of coming over the top and driving thing. There's 3 USB-C ports in the car. They've also been upgraded to now 65 watts power, so You know, it could be better, it could be 100, but 65 watts is still okay. Down here, if you're not familiar with the Teslas, you've got your phone charging, so you just sit that there and there, and you've got some pretty decent glove compartment size. And also in here, what I think is a bit of a missed opportunity is that in Australia, it would have been really nice if this was coolable. If you could actually have this kind of like double as a fridge effectively, considering everything that's futuristic in this car. Why can't I have a cold beer sitting in there? So those are kind of the experience from the front. Now, if you look up here behind us, this has got a different kind of compromised window to, for example, what we had in the Model Y, where the window went all the way back and this beam wasn't here. So it's got pros and cons. So the con is obviously that you don't have this one big glass panel that goes the whole way across the top and gives you this big wide open view of the stars or the sky, or wherever you happen to be driving above you. But because it's here, you've got more sight out the back, which means that when in a snap moment when you're looking for visibility in the car, you can see a lot more out the back than you can in, say, the Model Y. So it's a bit of a pro and a con there. I would prefer it, I think, back where the Y is, because it's just lovely having that big open space. Now I will jump in the back, and you can see how I fit in the back. So that's actually one thing we should look at while I'm sitting here, is that I'm 100 and almost 2 meters. I'm 195 centimeters tall, and I'm a 100 kilo big set bloke, and I fit in this car easily. So despite the fact it's a lower car, despite the fact it's a sedan, despite the fact it's a sportier shape, I still fit with so much ease. Heaps of room in the passenger seat too. Nice flat top here as well, so you can ride with relative ease. Now in the back, it's a little bit of a different story. So in the back here, as you can see, and this is typical for someone my size, is that the roof starts to concave down in these sedans and my head hits. So I can't sit straight up in this car at my height, which, you know, how many times have you had an adult my size sitting in the back of your car? Not that often, but kids nowadays, they get big quick. You know, my 12-year-old son's already taller than my wife. So, you know, like, that's just something to consider, is that if you're a large family or a big family, you're going to be driving in the back of the car a lot. That you don't get this in the Model Y. In the Model Y, there's heaps of space. Also, you can see my knees here. Obviously, this is back for me to drive, but that's a bit more compromised. I can't get my knees that front. That's really uncomfortable. So you'd have to sit like this. So that's something to think about with the back space. There's also no bottle holders in the actual compartments themselves. There's just a compartment that can hold something, but not a bottle in particular. And I would have really liked to have seen a bottle holder in there, but that's a minor issue. Again though, the finishes at the back, really, really lovely. And obviously the big new addition with the 2024 version of the Model 3 is this back screen. So that's an 8-inch fully touch screen at the back. You've got 2 USB-C ports down here as well. And then this is going to allow you to play games, watch movies, play with the aircon, music, so forth like that. So you've got this cool functionality for the kids in the back to go with the kind of all the functionality that you get on the screen at the front. So great feature, really, really lovely, especially considering that the price point hasn't changed really to get that in there. And you know, in general with the Teslas, what I find is even at the lowest range, you're getting so many luxury features that in other types of cars, you'd have to pay a lot more and go right up the range, you know, to get that kind of spec. You kind of get it in the bottom level with the Teslas. It's very, very, very cool. But I do hope that they look at doing this for the Model Y as well, because that's the more family-friendly of the vehicles. So obviously up here at the front, it's quite interesting because there's no engine. So there's another little storage space up here where you can put a few bits and pieces if you wanted to, or kind of rubbered as well, so not a bad place to put things that might get sandy, wet towels from the beach, that kind of thing. You can put up the front here. But you'll notice, I don't know if you can see through the camera, but if you notice the whole way around, everything's just really well engineered and really well made. There's definitely a feeling and a sense of quality here. Okay, well, let's go for a drive. So up here, you've got your, without the stick shift, you've got your kind of reverse. As you can see, it all lights up there. It's all beautiful. Screen looks amazing. Or you can go forward into drive. There's so much detail in here and where you can go into with the car and all the different dynamics and the way that you can set things for automatic and profiles. So the driver profiles, it'll change your seat to everywhere you need to go. You've this to the right place, your mirrors to the right place, all that kind of stuff. You can go through, I'm not going to go too much into this, but you can go through with your dynamics and change the way that the steering weight's going to be, how the acceleration's going to behave, all the way through. The customization features are really, really cool, and this kind of screen that shows you what's going on around you is also pretty impressive as well. We're just going to jump in and have a quick drive. All right. So one of the things that I don't quite like about the Teslas is see how the speed's over here, and I just really wish you could see the speed through here. And the reason is because like constantly, especially when there's school zones and construction sites and all these types of things going on that you're trying to handle, having to just keep your eyes over here and there at the same time is just not cool. So I really wish you could just in some way just see that speed that you're going in a more traditional spot. But I think it's something I'll probably get used to, but that's something that I would really like. I mentioned before, like the visibility is really kind of good everywhere you look, especially at the back with that different kind of glass window setup, the roof setup with the bar in the middle, but the mirrors are very small. And it's the same on the Model Y, exactly the same mirrors there. You can see more of the bonnet in the Model 3 though. You can see the kind of like frog-eyed hump look at the front end, and that does give you a little bit more of a visual indicator of where your car's actually entering. So you can rely on the sensors and everything, of course, but you know, it's just easier not to trust a machine. So in terms of the actual performance and boost, when you put your foot down this thing, it really goes, and it really shoots you back into your seat. And I know it says 6.1 seconds to 100. That feels like it's conservative, just from my experiences driving it. It just seems to be really quite fast. The turning circle on the Model 3 is definitely a lot better than the Model Y. It's a much more nimble car, and you can definitely notice it as you kind of going. Like I went through a couple of like forest roads where I was just zipping down forest roads, and I just felt a lot better. I didn't get motion sickness either, so as soon as you put your foot down, back you go into the back of the seat, and off she goes. I'm in 100 already, and that was 100 in a couple of seconds. And I realised that was not from a rolling start. So I think it's that 0 to 10 seems to be the bit where it slags a little bit. But once you're actually going, if you put your foot down, off you go. I'd be shuddered to think at the performance that comes from the highest model, since it's like 3 times faster than this car. What I do notice about the driving with the Model 3 though is it's got a bit more roll. Like you kind of feel this a little bit more, and you definitely feel the bumps a bit more too. Maybe it's just been lower to the ground and tighter to the ground, but it's not a bad experience. It's still quite a nice luxury, enjoyable driving experience. But you definitely do notice a bit more roll, yeah, and the bumps. You can feel the bumps and hear the bumps a bit more. And I know that they've done some work with the kind of trying to keep the outside world sound a bit further away, but I find it's not quite on the mark with the Model 3. You feel the outside world a bit more around you. And I'm not sure if you can see right now the reflection of that LED light in the, because I can see it quite big in the screen here. So if you get the right angle on the sun, you really do notice that in the reflection on your glass. But yeah, overall, my overriding feeling driving the car, and I'll just give it a little bit of gas now, is that I feel like I'm driving the car. And that was one of my big worries with the Teslas in general, was that I was going to feel like I wasn't in control of the car, that some robot was driving the car, and that I was just basically a passenger, not really engaged with the experience. That is not the case. I find that this is actually quite a hands-on experience, and even just using the blinkers like I just did then, and the lack of engine sounds to kind of like have that kind of cathartic engagement, the audible engagement, hasn't really affected me like I thought it would. I really enjoy driving the car. It's from someone who was standoffish on the electric cars. I've got to admit, like driving this Tesla, the 3, but also the Y before it has definitely made me come around. Now, I briefly mentioned the range before, so this theoretically can go 513 kilometers. I think that's a bit of a stretch, especially because you do lose power overnight. So if you just leave the car sitting there, and even like I turned off Sentry mode specifically, because Sentry mode does drain the battery a bit more than just the phantom drain that happens anyway. But the car's been sitting in the driveway now for a day and a half without being driven, and it's dropped the best part of 20%, 25% just sitting in the driveway with Sentry mode off. So that's a concern, because basically that 513 kilometers, I think it was, theoretical range is based on you getting really like maximum harvest as you kind of slow in and speed out, but also that you're driving constantly and not just sitting there draining battery doing nothing. So that's something to take into account, and obviously the more you use climate control and all those type of things are going to affect it as well. But it does have a different harvesting system. I think it's called regeneration. So on the Model Y, there was multiple settings. There was roll, there was chill, and there was hold, and it grabbed the car more as you were driving. Every time you stopped, it'd grab you like this, and it kind of give you a sensation of motion sickness. This car doesn't give you that sensation of motion sickness nearly as much, but I don't think you don't have that customization with the regeneration. So that's just something to take into account as well. I will say that you definitely feel safe driving the Tesla Model 3. Like the auto braking, it doesn't overcorrect you when you you can turn kind of stuff off and on, but it doesn't grab you like some cars do and force you back onto the road, which I hate personally, that kind of assist stuff. But it does have a lot going on to kind of just keep you aware and keep you a bit protected of what's happening. So it's definitely welcomed. If you're looking for a sportier version of the Tesla experience, then the Model 3 is definitely going to deliver. It's a beautiful looking car, a really luxury feel inside and out. And for the price that you're paying for it, even with this rear-wheel drive model, I think you're getting a very zippy experience, a very fun driving experience, and you're getting a lot of these luxury finishes and luxury features that you usually would never get in the bottom range car from other suppliers in the market. So, if you're willing to invest in the greater electric car movement and what's required of that, for example, getting solar on your roof, getting the required charging station set up at your house so that issues with range and that don't affect you too much, then I think, you're going to quite enjoy driving the Model 3. But you have to specifically want that sportier model of car, because like I said, the lower ride height makes it challenging to get in and out. The sedan shape compromises that boot space and that back row from taller people as well. And even though this car's got a little bit more zip, it's a little bit more nimble, and it's nicer looking than the Model Y, if it was me, I think I'd be choosing the Model Y over the Model 3, simply because even though you don't quite get the same bang and the same range, you're getting a car that's got more functionality because of that bigger boot and that bigger space, and it's easier to fit in there, and it still drives really fantastically. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Tesla Model 3. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos. In fact, keep an eye out for that comparison video that I'll put live as well. And until next time, I'll check you later.